This is the website for Bitsy. It's just bitsy.org. There's a link in the schedule here where you can access it as well. Bitsy is similar to Twine in the sense that it's a web-based game engine. It doesn't have a cloud storage system, so you can save your game locally as you're working on it in the browser, but it won't exist anywhere except that local version of the browser on that specific machine. So to save the game, if you want to work on it somewhere else, you'll have to download a file, and I'll go over how to do that, in a little bit. But let's just get started. So this is the sort of home website for Bitsy. We're going to start here on Make a Game in a moment, but I just want to show a couple of these other links. So if you go to Play a Game, you can see all the games on itch.io that are tagged with Bitsy. There's a lot of them. And so you can, if you're curious to see some examples of things that people have done with the game engine, you can see them here. This is sorted by most popular. So, the games up at the top are going to be, games that have been played a lot and that people like. So those might be some good examples, but you can also, sort it by other filters. There is also a website for the documentation. So this talks about everything that you can do with Bitsy and how to do it. We won't really use this that much, but it's good to know that it's there. There's also a forum where you can ask questions about it and see what other people are working on and stuff like that. And there's a few other links down here, but we're going to go to Make a Game. So this is where the actual game engine is. You can see a game that I was working on in the past, but we're going to get rid of these windows. And so the cool thing about Bitsy is it's basically everything is built into the browser, but it's very limited. So this is like what I would call an opinionated game engine. It's not fully featured. You can't just build any game. You can't add your own sprites. You can't add your own music. There's a lot of limitations on what you can do. And the thing that's actually nice about that is it sort of forces you to focus on just the game building elements. So you can make very simple pixel graphics in the engine. You can make music, you can make background music and sound effects, but it's within the engine. You can make dialogue using their dialogue tree. You can build different rooms and levels, but everything is based on the same sort of set of rules. So our options are limited, but it means that it's a little bit easier to get started, and it kind of narrows our focus on just the basic building blocks of the game. We will use fully featured game engines after this, but this is kind of our next stop between Twine and the other game engines that we'll use. If we go to Tools here, you're going to see all the different windows that you can bring up. And if you can toggle this on and off, and if you click on one of these windows, it'll pop up a little window. This is the documentation here, so you can actually read the documentation inside of Bitsy, and then you can bring this out into a separate window, or you can X this out. In the game window, this is where you can save your game. So just like in Twine, we had the .twi file. In Bitsy, you have a .bitsy file to save the data. You also have the .html file, which you can use to publish the game, just like we did with Twine in our last project. There's some settings here. We're going to leave these all as the default. And then you can actually take a look at what your data looks like here if you want to preview it. I'm going to click New Game. And it says, starting a new game will erase your old data. Hey, how's it going? Do you have a question or? Okay. So if you start a new game, whatever game you have stored locally will get erased. So you may want to save, I'll probably just save this game real quick, just in case I want to use it again at some point. But I'm going to click New Game and hit OK. And so now I just will have mostly blank game, but there's a few defaults that it builds for me so that I can get started by editing those defaults. So then we'll just keep going through these guys. So the next editor is the room editor. This is kind of like the main game editor where you can edit different rooms and you can create your setting, you can place tiles in the room, and then you can place your main character, which is this guy. and you can place other items. So in Bitsy, there's only a few basic types of things that you can have. If we go to the paint menu, you can see there's basically 4 different types of things that you can create in the game. There's the main character or player or avatar. There's tiles. You can make different types of tiles to build out your level. There's sprites. These are NPCs that we can interact with. And then there's items. These are things that we can collect or also interact with. And in this paint editor, we can, edit those things. So in the room editor, we have a few different options. The main sort of editor or setting is edit. And so when I'm in the edit setting and I have paint, if I click, it's just going to add whatever my item is that I have selected. So again, I have to have paint open to know what I'm going to be adding. So in some cases, you have to have multiple windows open to have the right context. So if I open my paint window and I go to tile, now you can see when I click on these boxes, it adds tiles. If I right click, it removes the tiles. Although it's also bringing up the context menu, which is kind of annoying. I wonder if they used to have that turned off, but some JavaScript update has broken that, probably. So that's a little annoying. Maybe if I'll see if I can figure out how to make it not do that later. But for now, we'll just have to deal with it. Anyway, if I right-click, it gets rid of the tiles. Okay. So then I can add sprites and items as well just by clicking in different areas. So their default item is this like little teacup thing. Okay, so we can also change our color settings. We can add music, so we can choose different music to play here, and then we can choose a different avatar if we want to. Then you can add exits and endings. So you can add exits. These are like doors that go to other rooms. And then endings will end the game. And then down here, you can choose between showing the grid and showing the walls. So you have, this little grid if you want to see these boxes. This is not part of the actual game. And then you can also turn walls on and off. If you hit play, it'll open your game and you'll kind of see what you've got. So there's like a little intro, and then you can hear the music playing, and I can move my player. And if I go over an item, I'll get a dialogue. And there's a guy down here, and if I go next to the NPC, and he says, "I'm a cat." And so we see those are kind of just like the built-in defaults, but we're going to overwrite those in a moment. So that's what happens when you play the game. You get a little preview of what you've got so far. So this is the example room, and this little UI up here is how you can edit or create new rooms. So if I hit copy, I'll make a copy of this room where I can, make changes. If I hit plus, I'll just make a blank room. And then if I hit delete, I'll delete that room. And then if I search, if I have a lot of rooms, I can use the search to find a room. So let's make a new room, and let's call this starting room. And we'll kind of just create a couple things for our setting. So again, most of the time I'm working in Bitsy, I'm gonna have my room editor open and my paint editor open. So I'm just going to start with the setting first. I'm going to turn the grid on, and I'm going to have edit. And so over here, I'm going to go to tile, and I'm going to make a couple tiles. So the default tile is block. You can delete that if you want to, but you can also just, leave it there. And this has the same little UI that we saw up here. So I can move between my tiles using the arrows. I can add a new tile like this. I can duplicate a tile, I can delete a tile, and I can search for tiles. In the tile itself, I can also turn this grid on and off. So this grid is like a smaller version of the big grid. So each one of these boxes is represented by this grid. And then I can choose whether this is a wall or not. So if it's a wall, the player will get blocked by it. If it's not a wall, the player will be able to walk over it. It's just part of the scenery. And then we can also add animation if we want to. We won't do this for the tiles, but we might do this for some of the other components. So, when you're designing your tiles, you can choose some different stuff that you want to add. Like maybe I want just like a little like dirt tile. So I'll just add a couple dots and I'll make some like pathways out of this. I'm going to just do a couple quick examples. So I'm not going to be too, I'm not going to spend too much time making it look good. But let's say I want to use this. I'll call this tile dirt. And I'll use this to make like a little path. So I'll have this little path like that, and then I'll put my character here, and this path will kind of lead somewhere. So I can have dirt. Let's make another tile, and I'll call this a tree, and I'll make my trees walls. So I'll have like a little forest, and the player won't be able to walk through the trees. So I'll make like a little tree trunk, and then I'll make like a little tree leaves. And you can see it's very rudimentary. Like I don't have that much data to work with, which again is just to force me to focus on the design and like the game design itself, and not necessarily the visuals. So let's make a little grid of trees. Oh, that looks weird. Oh, because I have walls turned on. Let's turn walls off. There we go. So now I see the trees. So I'm just gonna make like a little grid of trees around here. And I'm not going to fill this all in just in the interest of time, but you can see I can just quickly kind of paint these trees and create this kind of starting point. Okay. So what I want to do is just make it clear to the player that basically you want to walk down this path. So now I want to add my player into this scene. So I'm going to go to, I'm going to go back to avatar and just add the avatar there. And then I want to make this room the starting room. So I kind of forget, maybe that's in game. Maybe just putting the player there. Yeah, okay. So just actually adding the avatar will make this game the starting room. Also, we forgot to give our game a title. So I'm just going to call this Bitsy Example Fall 2025. So I'll remember what this is in the future. But obviously, you should name the game whatever you feel like. So now we can play this scene. And so here's my player. And I can't move past the trees. I should have added a little border on the trees because they all are connecting to each other. But that's a good example of what not to do. And so now you can see I have like this little scene and there's a little path. And so it's pretty clear that I should lead the player down the path. So this is just an example of like setting it up. So I'm introducing the player to sort of like the basics of the mechanics of the game. So one of the nice things about Bitsy is I've noticed that my trees, I don't actually want them to fill up the entire window. So I can go back to my tree tile and I'm just going to edit the edges. And you'll see that it can update all of my tiles as I'm editing it. It's still doing this annoying thing where it shows this little menu, but we're going to not worry about that for now. So now I've edited all my trees. It looks better, and I can move on with my life. So let's go to our next room. So I'm going to add a new room, and we'll call this room 2. Let's call this, I guess just room 2 is fine for now. And so we'll finish our little path. So I'm going to go to dirt, and I'll have the path come out like this. And then I'll put some trees maybe up here. And maybe I'll give the player like a couple different directions to go. So I'll put some trees here and then make like a little path through here, something like that. So we want to give them enough room to get down there. Okay. So I'll start to like add stuff to the scene. So now we can connect these two rooms. So to do that, we want to go to our exits and endings menu. So it says there are no exits or endings in this room yet. Let's close our paint menu for a moment. Let's actually go back to our starting room. So it says there's no exits or endings in this room yet. You can add one using this tool. So again, notice it has the same little UI here where we can add and edit new things. So I'm gonna click a new exit. And so this is gonna be you can do an exit where you can go back and forth, or one-way exit. Once I leave this room, I won't be able to go back. So whatever you think makes sense. I'm gonna go with just regular exit. And then it's gonna let me choose where the exit should go. So I'm just gonna click move and then click inside, whoops. Oh wait, I don't think that's what I wanted to do. Okay, I wanna click move and then click here. There we go. So you click move and then click on the block where you want this to go. And so then we go to room 2. So if I click on this part of the exit, it brings me to room 2. And now I choose here where I want this to go. So again, I have to click move first and then go back to the room and click where I want it to go. So now if I play this game again, you can see that I go from one room to the other. And I can add different transition effects. I can edit this just like right here. So I can, change what to go from where. Let's go back to starting room for a second. Okay, so yeah, I can move where this goes. I can edit, so I can just like write in the cell that I want here. So I can change it that way. And I can add a transition effect. So if I do like a wave effect, this will show a little effect when I go through the room. Oh, that didn't really work. Oh, there it goes. I don't know why it didn't work that direction, but it worked that direction. Let me see. I guess I have to do it over here too. So there's a few different effects that you can add. Again, you can't like create new effects. It's all just built in. You're working with the settings designed for the engine. But you get this little wave effect. It's nice if you want to just, make it clear that you're moving from one place to another. And then let's turn that off. And then I think by accident, I deleted my dirt here. So let's put the dirt back. Because I forgot to hit move when I added that. Okay. There we go. So I've got my starting room, and then I've got my next room. You could also, of course, make a sprite that represents like a door. So that way it would be clear, but I'm just going to use this kind of like, directionality of the path to suggest to go into this next room. Okay, so you can make as many rooms as you want. You can make as many connections between different rooms. Like you can have more than one exit in a room, and you can connect, you can connect rooms in a circle. You can kind of do all this sort of branching stuff that we did with Twine using your rooms. So I want to go over a couple more things, but then I'll stop so you guys can have some time to work in class. So let's go back to our paint menu, and I'm going to go to room number 2. So there's 2 other things that we can add in the game. One is sprites. I'm going to go over this a little bit more in the second part of class because I'm going to talk about dialogue trees. But essentially, when you add a sprite, we can add this little cat here. You can add a dialogue, and when the player approaches the sprite, it'll initiate the dialogue, and you can go through a dialogue tree. You can also set a sound effect to go with the sprite. I'll go over sound a little bit next week, but you can start to play with that. It's pretty straightforward if you want to today. And then there's a lot of other stuff you can do with it. You can add variables and do things like we did in Twine as well. So if you want to make your own sprite, so this is the default cat. If you want to make your own sprite, you can just, click on the plus button, and you can think about other things that you would want to be in your game. So this is where your setting and your concept for your game might start to come into play. Think about what types of things would you interact with in this game world. So we have a cat. Maybe I'll make a mouse as an example. And so I'll try to draw a little mouse in here. It's not going to be very easy because the mouse is tiny. Oh, you know what? If you just click again on the cells, I'm thinking about Godot, where you do the right click. But with this one, it's just on and off. So you can just click on the cell again. That's how you get rid of it. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let's make a little mouse. So he's going to have like a little tail like that, and a couple little ears, and a couple feet. That's good enough. So then if I add the mouse in there, and the sprite can only have one instance. So you can see, like, when I click the mouse and then I click in another area, it just moves the mouse to that other area. So items, I can have multiple items, but the sprites are kind of NPCs. I can only have them in one place. I can also add animation. So with the animation, you only get 2 frames. So it's very, very simple, but you can add the animation if you want to, like, if I want to just have this mouse's like tail moving around like that, now you can see there's this like tiny little animation happening. So again, it's only 2 frames. Everything is very limited, but it does give you this option for adding animation. And then if you want a sound effect, you can add that, but I'll go over that later. And then if I click animation again, it'll just turn it off. So you have to have this animation toggled for it to go on. And we'll talk about dialogue a little bit later. So I've got my mouse character. I'm going to replace the cat with that. And now let's look at items. So items are similar. You can have a dialogue. You can have animation. And then you can add stuff to your inventory. So when you collect an item, you can increase your inventory. So let's make an item. I'll just make like let's make a cheese since we have a mouse. I'll make a little cheese. So I'll just make like a little triangle. That'll be my cheese. And maybe in my story, I can give this cheese to the mouse, and maybe it'll like tell me something or something like that. Okay, that's pretty bad, but you get the idea. So I can put as many of these cheeses around as I want, and then my player can connect them. So I have the cheese, and as I interact with each one of these items, we'll see that cheese value increase. So now let's try that out. So I go into the room, and there's the mouse character. I haven't written any dialogue yet, so nothing happens when I approach it. But there's the cheese. You can see each time I get a cheese, that number goes up. And there's other things I can do with that, but that's kind of like the default thing. So, what? The cheese looks like pie? Yeah, I didn't do a very good job of drawing it, but I'm going a little fast. Yeah. So maybe our mouse likes pie instead of cheese. Anyway, what I'll do later in class is we will create a dialogue tree where I can give the mouse cheese to, unlock something. Okay. One last little quick thing before we do some in-class workshop time. You can also set the colors. So the default colors you can see here, but basically the way it's set up is you can have any colors you want, but you only get 3 colors per room. So you can have rooms with different colors, but you only get 3 colors per room, and you only get colors for the background, the sprites, and the tiles. So you can see if I make a new color scheme. Oh, I'm playing the game. Let's stop for a second. So I have my blueprint. That's the default color scheme. If I make a new color scheme, this is my new color palette, and I go to my room, if I want it to have this color palette, I go to colors and then select this color scheme. And let's call this just mouse colors or something like that so we can recognize it. And then you can edit the colors here. And for this, you only have 3 colors, so you need to be kind of careful about your choices. You want to have like a good amount of contrast so it's easy to see the difference between the tiles and the background and the characters. So in this example, the tiles in the background are very close in color, so it's not very easy to see the difference. So I might want to take like the background color and make it, you know, a little bit different so they stand out a little bit. But then the sprite color does stand out pretty well from the rest of the scene, so that's good. We want the sprites to kind of stand out the most because those are the most important components. So if I choose the sprite color, you know, I can change that. And so you can have multiple color schemes, or you can have one color scheme that applies to the whole game. So yeah, I'm going to stop here for now, but that's the basic idea. Later in the second part of class, I'll go over making a dialogue tree. And then next week, we'll do some more stuff like that with this. We'll talk about music and doing some more advanced stuff. But I think this is a good place to start. So we'll do some workshop time. You guys can start working on a game. And you can start playing around with the game engine, but also start thinking about what your concept for your game will be. For this week, for the post, you can just kind of, you know, talk about the game concept and then include a couple screenshots. There's also a way to record the game, so I'll show you guys how to do that in the second part of class as well. All right, so I'm going to stop here.